What the Heal. My name is Maria Sellars, and I have the honor of being here with Demetrie Luke today. So thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show and drop in your wisdom and your knowledge, literally.
Yeah, that's my job.
Yeah, the most important job in the world, I think. Demetrie used to be a teacher full-time, and he is now a tutor. And so he's going to share a little bit more about his journey within that. I am so grateful because I always tell parents who I work on, I'm like, Demetrie does for kids' minds what I do for yours. And I think that's such an important gift. So tell us a little more. What the hell has been going on in your world?
Man, a lot of stuff's been going on. I would say, so yeah, first off, just thank you for having me. Thank you for having me out here. You know, it's not easy to start a business and really kind of see it grow, and you have these hurdles and you have these challenges, especially when you try to like what I would like to create is something that is the best in its space and in its industry, because I feel like we now live in a time where education has shifted so much over the past 5-10 years. I mean, society has shifted so much in the past 5-10 years, but some of the systems and the institutions that we trust to guide people and raise people into the future have not changed nearly as much. And I think that I look at my role as playing a piece in the adaptability of what the education space needs to be in order to serve kids that are fundamentally encountering a very different world than they used to be in before.
Gosh, why is that making me cry? That's exactly why I wanted to have you on the show, because it's so important. Our education system is so archaic. It's like built off of the industrial society 100 years ago, and that is not where our future is headed. So why are we still putting kids in that same box?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think one of the things that I see is largely it's for convenience, right? And that's one of the most unfortunate things, is that oftentimes the next generation suffers because as I guess adults or as society, we've accepted that an old system is the gold standard, and we're so focused on just like, I feel like sometimes just trying to put Band-Aids on issues that we haven't really thought about what deeper things are required to heal, you know? And just like the body, right, is we can always look at the symptoms and try to just put patches on the symptoms, but unless we're really looking at the underlying, for example, maybe the stress factors in people's life. And I don't know if you encounter this too, but I feel like there's one side of like what people come to you for on the surface level, right? Maybe there's like an ache or some type of pain that gets manifested as, you know, you always talk about that little hunchback, and like people got their shoulders up to their, you know, to their ears or something like that. And that's what we see, you know? And for kids in the education space, that's like them, maybe a lack of motivation, right? Might be that thing, or even a failing grade. That's their shoulders up to their ears. You know, that's their stress. But I think we fundamentally, unless we really address the root, which may be, you know, that teachers, for example, don't really get paid enough to attract top talent.
Amen
right?
to that. That's unfortunate. I'm like, teachers should be paid like doctors.
Yeah, and like retained for the same amount, especially considering, I mean, I think education to me is like a matter of national security. I truly look at it as a matter of national security, you know, because I think when it comes down to what issues we like address as a society, whether we're talking about crime, whether we're talking about like economics, whether we're talking about even literally our defense as a country, even if you are talking about like literally the military or something like that, right? Our protections. I think that the most underutilized resource that we have here in the U.S. is our own population, and the opportunities that they have to really, that we have to develop them in a world that's like I said, just rapidly changing, you know? So yeah.
As a teacher, I feel like when you're in the formal education system, you're not able to fully do that.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult because of what the expectations are, and also that sometimes the best aspect of teaching is that you are able to address a class and learn about a class like piece by piece. And I think there's these two simultaneous pushes that haven't yet resolved themselves in our education space. One being that as a society, we are trying to look at education as a science because of things like the high level of churn that come out. The fact that like a lot of, educators that may be entering are also going to be young. It's hard to retain people sometimes in the system. Then COVID happened and just knocked out a whole bunch of people that were experienced, that were able to mentor people. And so I think that from a like legislative level, people are looking at education as what's the science aspect of how can we make sure that our approach is as routine, as standard as possible. And it goes back to that roots in the industrial, like our industrialization of education. We're trying to make it so that we provide a standard education system that all students come out with the same bar of education. But we're doing that in a world where now the niche down, where kids are now in a world where they can have a specific talent and blow that very niche talent up into something that can really take care of themselves or really just change their lives, and I think that both sides are important, but I bring up the science aspect because I think that teaching is very much an art as well. And I think that sometimes in the education system, that artistic capability is taken away from you due to the routinized aspects. And some of that's just going to come from getting to know your students and having the agency to kind of like custom create your approaches. So that was one of the main reasons why I took a step back from the classroom.
Yeah.
Right, was because I felt like there were ideas that I had for what learning could be and should be relevant to my specific students that I was passionate about that I didn't feel like I always had the opportunity to roll out.
Exactly. And that's where I think that we lose some of the best educators for that. So I'm glad that you found your way back into the tutoring space because you got so done with teaching, you stepped away from teaching altogether.
Yeah. It felt like that. I think that's one of the difficult things about teaching, or like the stress can build up so much and the responsibility can build up so much that it's like when you step out, I think that it's very easy to just never want to look back at that specific path again. But, I think most people that have gone through it, it's very easy to feel grateful for what your experience was.
Yeah, I mean, your heart is in it for the right reasons. And truthfully, I think you leave it for the right reasons as well, too. The teachers who have chosen to step out of the education field formally in that way and tutor and work with kids more on a one-to-one and understand where they're at. Because the box that we have kids in today, not all 7-year-olds are mentally in the same place. Mm-hmm. Truly, the same goes for any age that there is. And so when you have the ability to work with kids and to meet them where they are and nurture their minds where they are, plant those seeds, like that's where they really get to grow and flourish.
Yeah.
But our system, it's like, you didn't check this box and here's your failing grade.
Yeah. And
the kid feels like, I'm a failure. And that stays with them. It's like, it's tough.
And I think like there's a lot of opportunities to contextualize what even failure is, right?
First attempt in learning.
First attempt in learning. Is that the definition right there?
Yeah.
F for first attempt.
FAIL, yeah.
I like that. Yo, look, we got the acronyms on deck.
I think shout out to Josh on that one. It was a positive quote of the day on BNI once. And I was like,
Let's go. So honestly, it's those details, right, that I think we don't expose students enough to. Mm-hmm. Those details of how do we think about even something like failure, first attempt in learning, right? That's where I think the failure really comes. Mm-hmm. Is we treat almost like the learning as if it were a job performance. And that's something that my parents had kind of like framed it for me. Like being a student is your job. That is your first and foremost job growing up, right? But I think that it's a little bit more nuanced than that, that it's a job, but your job is not to at least when I think about it, our job as a student is not to get it perfect. It's to get yourself better. Right?
Yes.
And in order to do that, two things need to happen. One, students need to have a clear idea of where they're coming from. And that's where our role as educators comes into place, is to give students a level of awareness, because all of us, like, it's so much easier to understand where to celebrate any time period, any growth, like the end of the year, graduation, if we understood where we were graduating from, at the beginning. And then two, to kind of checkpoint with students along the way. Like, I've kind of realized that education is ideally at its highest level, it's motivation and accountability.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it's empowering people with the resources for them to, like, learn things on their own. For me, my ideal classroom would have been one, or is one, where you could erase the teacher. It's just the teacher's just an onboarder into a learning experience. And then from there, you build up a classroom environment experience to where the learning just takes place because people are curious.
Because they want to learn and dive into that, which is a big shift from, here, you have to learn this. Well, where does it apply? And a lot of times they're like, you just have to learn it. But tell me how I'm going to use this.
Yes.
I was actually a horrible student. I barely graduated high school. And speaking of motivation and accountability, I had a teacher who, she stayed on my ass. Oh my gosh, like from 10th grade. She wasn't even my teacher and she was on my ass.
Let's go.
And when she finally did become my teacher one year, it was when I had gotten my first tattoo. And she was like, look, if you graduate on time, we'll go get tattoos together. And then even when she wasn't my teacher, she would like see me in the hallways and she'd be like, and she would just, again, stay on me. And she did. She held to that. That was her thing. She was like, we went and we got those tattoos together.
She got the tattoos?
She got it. Yeah, we went and got tattoos on her foot together.
Oh, what? Can I ask what it was?
So I got one for my uncle. It was this. Nope, it's not that foot. That foot. So SNB. Yeah.
Let's
yep.
go.
So I got that for my uncle. But she stayed with me within that. And she was like, no, you got to do this.
I find that to be so interesting because, like, she was the person that was on you. You mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like, and kind of held you to a high. Did it feel loving in the moment, or were there sometimes friction along the way with that? Like, where you're just like, man, I wish this lady, like, would just leave me, let me just have a bag. I'm just trying to chill out at home. I want to just take a little walk, man. You out here sweating me for this graduation stuff.
It felt nurturing.
Like,
it did, yeah.
Okay.
It was like,
okay.
Come on. Yeah. So it was good the way that she did it. And I feel like it did make a big difference.
Yeah.
And that's why I have such a respect for educators. One of my principals used to sing, like, how do you solve a problem like Maria? So that was just my whole school career, right?
And were they talking about you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Because I'd be down in the principal's office.
So you were the problem.
Oh, I was the problem. Yeah.
Okay. I thought they were like...
I was the problem.
I thought they were like, oh, she really got a good problem-solving method.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? It's from a movie, apparently. Okay. So I was always constantly getting into trouble. But I did have teachers who would look out for me. And, they'd give me, like, little special tasks. Like, if you pay attention and if you get all your homework in, you can do this.
Yeah.
And so they were always... I look back now and I'm like, I guess they could see that potential that was there, even though I was wild. Some of them were like, most of them wanted to send me to the office, but there were a few who were like, no, hey, come on, let's do this. Let's keep you in line with it.
You know what's so interesting? Like the potential, even though you were wild, because I feel like the truth is, and maybe this isn't something that's highlighted enough inside of our school system, is that the potential comes because you are wild. You know what I mean? Like, the potential is like, man, like, you as a person are outside the box, or it's oftentimes the students that are going to, number one, question a lot of things, right? And so if for example, if you're a parent right now and your student is and you have a student that just is just super rebellious, or you feel like you just like they're always doing the wrong thing or getting into the wrong thing or something. Sometimes these things are marks of intelligence. It's just not in the right context. Like you were talking about planting seeds, you know, it's like there's like the difference between an invasive species and just a regular species is where it is planted, not the species itself.
Yeah.
Right? There's no inherently invasive species. It's just where is it planted? And sometimes if you put this plant that's meant to grow in the rainforest, it's meant to grow in the jungle, and you put it in the city, it may grow like a wild jungle plant. It may start wrapping around all your stuff, and that's just in the plant's nature. But yeah, like I said, I find that super interesting because my favorite students were the ones that were the troublemakers. I'm gonna be honest. I would be like, oh yeah, okay, cool. All we need to do is just give you the awareness of what environment to be like this in, and to give you hopefully just an environment where you can be yourself in there, you know. So
that's huge.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like a lot of the teachers who have that passion wind up stepping out of the space, because it's like I want to be able to nurture where they are and help them to understand and grow. And it's with ADD, for instance, all my teachers are always like, that's a big disability. But like now I'm like, holy cow, thank goodness I have that, because I'm here, there, and there. But somehow I wind up where I need to be so my mind can think in all of these different directions and handle different passions and projects and things like that, but actually bring them all together. I just had to learn how to work with that aspect of my mind, instead of like, it's a bad thing. Like, oh no, wait, it's a good thing. How can I hone in on that skill?
Could I ask what that's meant for you? Because I have a lot of students that I serve with ADD, and yeah, I'd love to find out what things have you done that have helped you.
You told me this was going to happen. So, truthfully, learning how to meditate was a big thing. It's been a series of different things, truly, because each one kind of opens the door to the next. And so to learn just meditation on its own, I don't think I ever would have been able to do that. But yoga, that helped me to prepare both my mind and body to be able to better access meditation. Could I have learned to meditate in that way? Probably, I don't know. Maybe eventually I would have. But I used to, when I first started yoga, I would be there at the end, like looking around, like at everybody, lights out. And I'm like, what, these motherfuckers got their eyes closed? Like they're actually got their eyes closed. So I had zero chill. But that moving my body in that way, like that helped to open things up. It was really interesting. I was talking to somebody recently about their student, and he is struggling with math. And I'm like, it's just, don't worry. Like sometimes their brains just aren't developed in that way yet. And because that's what I came to for me. Because when I was in any school, elementary, middle, or high school, I could not figure math out. Like my brain just, I could sit down with you and do it, but the moment you didn't even have to turn away all the way. The moment you were done,
halfway,
it was boom.
quarter turn.
Yeah, I'm like,
what?
I don't even know. Or I could do it, but the moment I had to create my work, I don't even know what just happened. So it was really, really hard. But then when I got to college, suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, this is what they were trying to teach me all this time? Like, holy cow, this makes so much sense. And I just started picking it up. And so I just was like, oh, well, that part of my brain wasn't developed yet. And so I had shared this with her, and then ironically, I was reading a book 2 days later, and in the book, it was a craniosacral book. And it was talking about how he would work with students who had dyslexia or math issues and things like that. And he was like, doing this cranial work with them, which is working through the head and along the spine and helps to regulate the nervous system. But doing this work with them, their test scores were improving and all of these things were happening. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain didn't just develop. Like I had been getting, at that point in time when I went to college, I had been getting and receiving regular massage and scalp massage and head work and cranial and all of those different things. And so no, it wasn't that my brain had developed in that way. I had released whatever pressure that may have been there in my mind that was probably causing me to have those comprehension issues. So it's like wild how you look back on all of it, which is why I say one thing leads to the other and other. So meditation, working with that, focusing on the breath intentionally, learning just a basic breathing pattern where you can allow the exhale to be maybe 3 to 4 seconds longer than the inhale. That's a super easy one that you can do anywhere that you are and just start to build into that practice. But the breath helps to control the mind, but the mind's with the body too. So move your body, meditate, and breathe.
And get head massages.
And exactly.
You got them little cranial scratchers,
yes.
the little things right there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's
open up the chakra points.
Awakening Your Inner Physician was the name of the book. Highly recommend it. It's cranial sacral is really, really important work. But I was like, whoa, how wild. I was just talking to her about this. And that makes a lot of sense. The different things, like students have this whole life outside of school as well too, and you don't know what their home life is like, and the types of traumas that they're enduring outside of the classroom. And so, those things, meditation, movement, and breath, are ways that they can start to move those things so that they can
function better and like do the things that they need to do.
Exactly.
It's like, because like they need the tools. I think fundamentally young people, and we all really need the tools to, there's the things that we want to do, but then there's the things that pop up that are needed for like the maintenance of ourselves, for this human vehicle, this human body that just gives it the gas, that makes sure like, your oil's in check, like for us as humans, and I think that sometimes one of the early lessons that I learned in this education space is that their work is usually the last thing that they get to do with their time, oftentimes, unfortunately, because, we got to make sure that friends, that people got the right like connection with social networks, and that at the very least they feel like they're growing socially, and that you got food to come into play. And it's easy, like I said, it's easy for people to react to behaviors that they see in their small time together with students. But I think when we really look at students and give people the grace of these people becoming adults and really try to like uncover that everybody has reasons behind the reason that they're either, like getting distracted or just not present or falling asleep or doing the opposite of falling asleep, bouncing on the walls like Spider-Man, like some, so there's always reasons to this, you know what I mean? And to be able to, in order to actually unlock and open a student's mind to, like, I think being able to take in new information, we first have to unlock and uncover all those different channels that lead up to their head, and yeah.
Exactly. And that is why I tell people, you do for kids' minds what I do for adults. And I think that's super important and impactful work. So thank you so much for coming on to share with us. Tell people where they can find you at.
Yeah, you can find me on Google at Inlighten Tutoring. That's INLIGHTEN Tutoring. I'm located here in Central Florida, 1001 North Orange Ave, a couple minutes away from our current location in the heart of downtown Orlando. And that's where you can find me. You can also find us online at enlightentutoring.com, or on Facebook, or on Instagram, or on TikTok, or on YouTube.
All the socials. Anywhere you love to be on socials.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Are there any final words you want to leave us with?
Yeah. Final words is, once again, thank you. And I think most importantly, just patience with the journey is, when you ask me what the heal is going on, I'm learning patience with the journey. And I encourage, especially young people on their journey as well, to just have patience with the process and to choose a direction and just take small steps in that direction. And you'll get there.